Warning: the following video contains minor spoilers for the Critical Role actual play series The Mighty Nein. You have been warned. Hello YouTube and welcome to Prime Productions. I'm here to help enhance your tabletop gaming experience. If you're new to this channel, I primarily cover Paizo tabletop role-playing games like Pathfinder and Starfinder. So, if you've been following this channel for a while, you know that I'm a fan of the actual play series Critical Role. That's the RPG actual play series where a bunch of prominent voice actors play tabletop RPGs with some, quite frankly, stellar role-playing and acting. Now, I know there have been some controversies surrounding Critical Role, but at the end of the day, they are entertaining, fun to watch, and fun to listen to, and nothing really changes that. So, one of my earliest videos was looking into how to convert some Critical Role characters into Pathfinder. I've gotten a lot better at making videos since then, I hope, so I thought I'd take another crack at it. Now, the first few videos I made were for the first series that Critical Role did called Vox Machina, so today I thought I'd make a video about the second series they did called The Mighty Nein. Couple of things real quick. First, The Mighty Nein was played using Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. This was before the 2024 remaster, obviously, so keep that in mind. You don't need to know about D&D to follow along, and actually, you don't even need to know about Critical Role at all to follow along with this video. If you just want to hear about some cool character concepts, stay tuned and listen. I also won't be doing an in-depth build for each character because I want to get through all 8 characters of the Mighty Nein. That's right, there are 8 characters in the Mighty Nein. Nine is actually the German word for no. Anyway, because I want to get through all 8 characters, I'll be doing this lightning round style. I'll just list out the character's name, backstory, ancestry, heritage, and first level ancestry feat, and then their background, class, and subclass, and then lastly, anything special for their specific build, like class feats, items, archetypes, and so on and so forth. Also, just to let you know, I won't be slavishly devoted to the original builds. Because D&D and Pathfinder are different, the characters may end up having different classes, builds, or archetypes. My aim is to get as close as possible to the core of the characters, not to duplicate what is written down on the D&D 5e character sheets. Oh, and of course, spoiler alert for the Mighty Nein series. Starting off, we have Borgard Lionette. Her story is that she was a problem child that was sent off to a monastic order of spies and scholars by her wealthy but misogynistic father. She resented being trained by the Order of the Cobalt Soul, those monastic spies, but she did surprisingly well in their ranks. Borgard is a human, that's pretty easy. Because she's surprisingly knowledgeable despite having a bad attitude, I'd give her the Skilled Heritage for an extra skill that upgrades to Expert at level 5, and the feat Natural Ambition for an extra class feat. For her background, if the GM allows it, I'd pick up Northridge Scholar from the Seasons of Ghost adventure path. That grants the Society skill, the Academia lore skill, and the additional lore skill feat which Borgard could use to grab Cobalt Soul lore. For class, Borgard is obviously a monk. Monks don't get a subclass, but for her first level class feat, make sure Bo picks up Monastic Weaponry. And because she gets a second class feat due to Natural Ambition, I'd go for Key Strike. As for special things to consider, first of all, Bo is a dex-based monk who uses a staff, so I'd recommend picking up the Whip Staff for her. This is an agile finesse staff with the monk trait. It doesn't increase her damage very much, but it does give her the parry trait, which is nice. Also, D&D Beauregard eventually gets the ability to know about creatures when she hits them. You can actually get this ability in Pathfinder if you take Fighter Dedication and then grab the Fighter feat Combat Assessment. Caducus Clay joins the campaign later on and is a chill, understanding cleric devoted to healing and helping people along the cycle of life. He's also really into plants and fungi. He is a Firbolg. Now, in the Critical Role world called Exandria, Firbolgs are cow people, but still medium-sized. There are a couple of ways we can represent that in Pathfinder. Little Horn Minotaur, the new Serengay ancestry, Awakened Animal for Cow, or the Beastkin Versatile Heritage. Take your pick. Caducus is a member of a family of Firbolgs that tend a graveyard in the wilds and are all dedicated to the Wild Mother, a Critical Role deity dedicated to nature. I think this translates to the background of raised by belief for the Pathfinder deity Osiris, who is a god all about crops and honoring the dead. And yes, I know Osiris was a real-world Egyptian deity, but we are talking about the Pathfinder version. Now, D&D Caducus is a cleric, but given his affinity for plants and fungi, I think it might be better to make him a Pathfinder druid. This gives him his trademark armor and shield, but he is still able to heal, and it makes him good with spells, though if you wanted to make him a cloistered cleric, I would not argue. Assuming you go with druid, let's make him an Order of Leaf Druid. Now, this does give him a little leshy companion that he didn't have in the series, but otherwise I think it works pretty well. And there's really nothing special that Caducus needs to round him out. If you did go with cleric, maybe give him sentinel dedication so he can wear medium armor like he does in the series. If you went druid, maybe give him cleric dedication so he has a few extra healing spells. Other than that, you're good to go. Next up is Caleb Widowgast, though his original name was Bren Aldrich Ermendrud. I'm sure I messed that up. He has perhaps the most tragic story in all of Critical Role. He was a child prodigy at Arcane Magic and was recruited into an order of evil, corrupt super mages that are kind of the corrupt power behind the throne of a fairly colonizer-themed empire. The super mages then mind-controlled him into believing his parents were traitors to the throne to see what he'd do. He burned down his childhood home with his parents inside, which emotionally destroyed him and gave him, surprise, surprise, long-lasting mental trauma. Damn, what do you even say to that? Moving on, Caleb is human, so that's pretty easy. There's no specific heritage or ancestry feat he needs, so feel free to pick your favorites. For background, I'm going to go with something a little bit different. See, because Caleb burned down his home with his parents inside it, he has mental trauma surrounding fire. In the series, there is a house rule that if he ever reduces an enemy to 0 HP from fire damage, he might suffer a mental breakdown, which is understandable. So, I'll choose the background curse, only I'll reflavor it as mental trauma, which is triggered by bringing someone down to 0 HP from fire damage. I'll put the full text of the curse background on screen now. You can pause the video and read it if you want. The background also makes Caleb trained in occultism and curse lore, which is understandable given he's a very learned mage. For his class, D&D Caleb is a wizard, and I see no reason to change that. Now, D&D Caleb is a transmuter wizard, but in practice he mostly uses damaging spells, so I think for Pathfinder, I'll make him a School of Battle Magic wizard. For his thesis, let's grab a familiar, because D&D Caleb has the familiar Frumpkin, a cat. Now, D&D Caleb can do a lot of things with Frumpkin that a normal Pathfinder wizard cannot do, so I'd recommend going with the Familiar Master archetype and picking up a few of those feats. Ford, no surname, is a half-orc sailor that was nearly killed in a shipwreck. He awoke to find himself stranded on the shores of an island with no idea how he got there and a mysterious connection to an eldritch demigod bestowing him with magic. Like I said, Ford is a half-orc, which means for Pathfinder he starts off as a human with the Dromar versatile heritage. Now for his ancestry feat you could pick up anything, I'll leave that decision up to you. Ford's background is super simple, he's a sailor. This gets him the athletics and sailing lore skills and the underwater marauder skill feat. Now, figuring out Ford's class in Pathfinder is difficult because in D&D he is a Hexblade Warlock, meaning he is a charisma-based spellcaster that's good in melee combat and with spells. He can also do things like summon his sword to his side and fire off blasts of magical energy called an Eldritch Blast. There is nothing that perfectly reflects this in Pathfinder, though the new playtest Starfinder class of Solarian comes close as it can summon a weapon and shoot energy blasts through the Solar Flare class feature. But I think the closest we are going to get to Ford in Pathfinder is to make him a Magus, specifically a Laughing Shadow Magus. Now, technically, a Magus isn't powered by an external force like an Eldritch demigod, but you could reflavor Ford to say that his patron implanted the knowledge of how to Magus into his brain or something. There are other options too, of course, Battle Oracle or some flavor of Witch or even Kineticist, but I think Magus is kind of a good distillation of his abilities. For special considerations, if you want to get Ford's ability to summon his sword, grab the Mindsmith archetype, which lets you create a phantom sword out of psychic energy, which would work pretty well. Jester, real name Genevieve Lavore, is an extremely upbeat and fun-loving trickery cleric to a fey demigod. She was born to an extremely popular and lusted-after courtesan in her hometown and grew up extremely sheltered in a swanky resort. The reason she was sheltered was because if word got out that her mother had a child, it might hurt her popularity, so the fact that Jester was her mother's daughter was hidden from the world, though her mother was a very loving person to her in private. Jester is a blue-skinned tiefling, the result of her mother, a tiefling, having a dalliance with a water genasi, or what Pathfinder would call an undine. However, she takes mostly after her mother, so we will make her human with the versatile heritage Nephilim. For her ancestry feat, really you can grab anything, but let's go with Nephilim eyes to give her dark vision. Jester's background is that she was often left alone, which is when the Fey demigod met her and befriended her, sneaking into her room from the Fey realm. I think this would best be represented by the Fey friend background from the Wardens of Wildwood adventure path, which is uncommon, so talk to your GM. This nets Jester the Deception skill, the Fey lore skill, and the Charming Liar skill feat. For class, D&D Jester is a cleric, and there really is no reason to change that. Now, on her character sheet, Jester wears breastplate and has an axe and shield, but she never really uses them in-game, and all of her art depicts her in normal clothes with no weapons, so I think it's fine to build her as a cloistered cleric. Now, like I said, her deity is a Fey demigod, but I think I can represent that by using the Perplexing Jest Pantheon from Pathfinder, which can grant Jester the Trickery domain, which is perfect for her. Now, if you want to give Jester her medium armored breastplate for special consideration, I'd just grab the Sentinel archetype for her, but that's pretty much all you'd need to do for her. Next up is Nott, and okay, major spoilers for the campaign. We are introduced to Nott as a female goblin, but it turns out she's actually named Vreth Brennetto, a halfling who was, through a powerful hag, forcibly reincarnated against her will into becoming a goblin. There's a lot to unpack about Nott, and I am not qualified to talk about it, just know that there are some real-world parallels one could draw. Now, you can either build her as Nott the Goblin or Vreth the Halfling, either is fine. For her heritage and her ancestry feat, pick anything you want, as none of them really help or detract from her build. As for her background, well, that's a tricky bit. In the story, she was married to an alchemist, giving her some alchemical knowledge, but she's also a rogue who, at least at the beginning of the campaign, has tendencies bordering on kleptomania. So I'd grab the uncommon background Alkenstar Outlaw if the GM allowed it. This gets our complicated character here, the Thievery skill, along with the Underworld lore skill and the Subtle Theft skill feat. Now, like I said, D&D Nott/Vreth is a rogue, but she prefers to sneak attack at range. Now, D&D rogues can easily sneak attack at range, where Pathfinder rogues have more trouble. That, combined with the fact that Nott/Vreth often likes to play at being a detective, makes me think that she would work as an investigator. That way she can still get the sneak attack-like studied strike at range, and it works out similarly mechanically, and as an investigator she could grab the alchemical sciences subclass, giving her access to that limited alchemy ability like she has in the series. As for special considerations, eventually D&D Nott/Vreth picks up some arcane spell knowledge through the Arcane Trickster D&D Rogue subclass. We can represent this by just having her pick up the Wizard archetype. Also, she eventually gets an auto-loading crossbow that shoots 2 bolts when it critically hits. To me, this just sounds like a short bow. It doesn't take an action to reload, and it has the Deadly D10 trait, meaning it does more damage on a crit. You could just reflavor the short bow as like this mechanical auto-loading crossbow. Yasha Nidoran also has a complicated past that is a bit much to get into. Suffice it to say she's an Aasimar, or a human with a bit of celestial blood. She suffered her own trauma as part of her northern barbarian tribe, left them, some stuff happened, she got amnesia, and ended up joining a traveling circus. She also has a connection to the god of storms. If you can't tell, Yasha leans hard into the fallen angel trope, though she eventually does get redeemed. So, like Jester, in Pathfinder, Yasha would be a human with the Nephilim versatile heritage. Her ancestry feat could be anything, though if you wanted her to have the light cantrip like D&D Yasha did, you could get the Halo ancestry feat. For her background, Storm Survivor works perfectly well for her as it grants her the Survival skill, the Weather lore skill, and the Forager skill feat, helping her survive in the wilderness. For her class, Yasha was a barbarian, and I see no reason to change that. Specifically, I would make Yasha a spirit barbarian, as her D&D counterpart has the ability to do negative, or what we would call void damage, with her sword. Spirit barbarians deal spirit damage, it's similar. And really, that's about it. There are, in general, no special considerations for Yasha, with the caveat that she will have to wear armor. Originally, D&D Yasha didn't wear armor because of how D&D barbarians work, but she eventually gets some breastplate, and that would work for Pathfinder Yasha. There is one last person to talk about today, and that is Moach Tea Leaf. He started off with the Mighty Nein as an amnesic tiefling fortune teller and performer at the same circus as Yasha. He was very flippant and wise, but knowledgeable about scams and how to scam, and used that knowledge to help friends. Eventually, he met his end trying to save his friends fairly early into the campaign, and the party didn't have the resources to resurrect him at that time. We didn't really get enough time with him to learn about his backstory, but his story was eventually revealed years later in a reunion episode. Starting off like Jester and Yasha, Pathfinder Moach will be a human with the Nephilim versatile heritage. For his ancestry feat, we're going to again need to lean into the natural ambition human ancestry feat to get an additional class feat at level 1. For background, I think Mystic Seer fits. Don't be fooled by the name. This background from the Extinction Curse adventure path involves working at a circus and pretending to be a fortune teller while scamming people. Such dabbling with pretending to know magic eventually results in knowing a little bit of magic, which is why the background gets the Arcane skill, Scam lore skill, and Arcane Sense skill feat. Now, D&D Moach is a blood hunter, a homebrew class created by Matt Mercer, the Dungeon Master of Critical Role, though it has since been published in books. Complicating matters, Moach dual wields scimitars. There's not really a great parallel to Blood Hunter in Pathfinder. They are kind of this magic-adjacent martial class. I think the best I can do is to make Moach a ranger with the Flurry Hunter's edge. Then, because of natural ambition, he can grab the first level class feat Twin Takedown for dual weapon wielding, and also the class feat Initiate Warden for a ranger focus spell. Probably gravity weapon, though choose your favorite. I'd also trade in his dual scimitars for dual flissa, which are agile so they work better with Twin Takedown, but they are still curved blades, so it has the same aesthetic. And there you go, that's how I'd remake the Mighty Nein as characters in Pathfinder 2e. Do you like my ideas? Do you have any different ways you'd go about doing things? Let me know in the comments below, and while you're down there, make sure to like and subscribe. That tells both me and YouTube that you like this kind of content and would like to see more. And until next time, thank you, good luck, and happy gaming!